Hey y'all, it's me again with another episode. So, this is going to be part three of my Seattle adventure. I'm going to try to wrap this up. There's no telling how far I'll get, but we're going to pick up right where we left off. So, I'm sitting around all these people. The Zaza has went around, and I'm not a big smoker at this point in time in my life, and so um, it really got to me. It really got to me. And I remember sitting there, and there were little conversations and things I was hearing. And I don't know if any of you have ever been in a party setting or things like that, and you start hearing like chatter, and then something will stand out. It'll kind of catch your attention, and then something will stand out over there, and that was kind of the vibe I was getting. And so this group that's all in there, they're freestyling, they're doing music, and I'm grooving, and all of a sudden I start feeling a huge sense of dread. Um, it was like I can almost feel it now, um, talking about it. And so I remember thinking, like what I ended the video with was I don't know any of these people. I don't really know where I'm at. Um, I mean, I'm hearing things like bounty hunters looking for people, cases that people have, you know, and here I am with my nerdy self. And so it was like this fog came over me in my peripherals, and I developed this tunnel vision. And the tunnel vision saw a reality that was entirely possible if I didn't remove myself from the situation while people were distracted. So, um, y'all know that meme of Homer Simpson slowly backing out into the bushes away from a situation? That's a lot like what I did. Uh, I backed out of it very slowly. I remember I just got up and went into my room, and all I had in that room was a suitcase of clothes and a few knickknacks, and also a blanket. Yeah, I had a blanket and a pillow. I remember that. And so I just curled up there, and I just laid there, and I just felt absolutely terrified. Like, what am I doing? Why would I just up and leave a place, to come try something new because of these fears I had had about being a dad? And, I felt like I had put my life on the line, and I was scared. Um, so I decided that the next day or two, whichever I could muster, I was going to get out of there. And so I remember the next morning I woke up. It was probably like 10 in the morning. I went out there, and uh, my roommate and her baby dad were having breakfast with their kid. And so she had laid out this paperwork for me to fill out, when I got the chance. And so I felt really pressured to make a decision right then and there. And even though the buzz had wore off, that deep sense of dread didn't. And that was the telling moment that, you know, I needed to get out of there. So I told her, yes, I'll take care of the paperwork. I need to reach out back home and blah, blah, blah. I can't even remember exactly what it was I said, but I needed to say something to buy me some time. So they had decided that they were going to go shopping or whatever like that. And I said, yep, I'll have the paperwork all filled out by the time you get back. And I know I didn't have much money, but I jumped my ass up after they left and headed for the freeway. Um, yeah. Remember, I loaded up, got gas, and I didn't have much money, but I knew I was going to get as far as I could away and as close as I could to home. And so I'm driving back, and I felt defeated. Um, yeah, I remember I felt really defeated. Like I didn't give it a chance. Like I wasn't being a man, I guess. And so, remember along that drive, I went as far as I could, you know. And I remember I got to this town called Hot Lava Springs, Idaho. I had reached out to my grandmother who was back in Omaha, let her know I was on my way back and I was going to need some money. And she, offered the Western Union because remember you could Western Union it. But, she needed someone to get there. And so that was a whole complicated issue. She needed someone to help her with it, rather. And so I got to this town called Hot Lava Springs, Idaho. Very picturesque village type place. I remember driving over this bridge, and the bridge went over hot springs. It was beautiful, absolutely. And I stopped at this little coffee shop, and I went into the coffee shop and had the most amazing experience. Definitely something that lifted the mood and let me know that there's something greater than yourself that exists out there. So I go to this coffee shop and I decide to call my grandmother and kind of let her know, my whereabouts and things of that nature. And I sat down, I ordered a cup of coffee, and I was hungry and I needed to see if I had enough money to at least get some hash browns, a couple of eggs or something like that. And so I'm looking at this menu and this guy is sitting next to me. This white guy is sitting next to me, and I don't know how we started talking. I can't remember. But we got on the conversation of traveling, and he lived in Florida, and he was was coming from, I think, Spokane, something like that, Spokane, Washington. And he was driving back. He had went to see his daughter. And so we're talking, and he asks me where I'm from, and I said, "Well, I'm living in Des Moines, Iowa, but I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska." And he says, "I went to high school in Omaha, Nebraska." And I'm like, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah, I went to high school in Omaha, Nebraska." And so we're continuing the conversation. We're talking, and then it turns out he went to the same high school my uncle went to. And not only that, but they were on the same track team. It, I can't make this up. I wish I was creative enough. But that's exactly what happened. And so he's asking, "Yeah, how's he doing?" or whatever, and I'm like, "He's doing good. He's driving the city bus and things like that." Just opened up this whole connection with this random person in the middle of nowhere. And the further the conversation goes, we start talking a little more, and he becomes aware of my financial situation rather. And he says, "Well, here you go." And he reaches in his wallet and he gives me $100. And that that still resonates with me. Um, I don't know what people believe in. Um, it's your life. Everybody has their own beliefs, their own thoughts on things, but whether you want to call it God, Allah, the universe, whatever the case may be, it was definitely looking out for me. I mean, of all places, of all places. And I wish I could remember this person's name. I do. Um, but I'm grateful. And so we talked. I left, thanked him immensely, um, and went on my way. Continued on the trip. And I just remember driving and driving. And at one point, I just stopped listening to music. I had a lot to think about. I mean, it was soul searching. And I think a lot of us um, that have done that trip, and I don't even mean my trip, I mean everyone has that own existential journey, that canon event rather, that changes your outlook and trajectory, and it's defined. And I was going through that. I had to think about all the things I had went through growing up, the things that I needed to let go of, the things I needed to hold close. All these things just flooded my mind on that trip. And I was young, and given everything I had been through growing up, I didn't know. I didn't know what type of dad I wanted to be or I could be. I spent so much time trying to wonder if I was better off, you know, being away. So I fought. I had a real deep internal battle. And that drive went on and on and on. And I started running out of gas when I got toward North Platte, Nebraska. And I remember I rolled into this gas station, and it was in a sound in a town just west of North Platte called Sutherland. And there was this gas station, and North Platte is probably about 3 to 4 hours away from Omaha, which I'm trying to get to so my grandmother can help me get to Des Moines. And so um, I remember going to this gas station, and it was late in the evening. I remember it being dark, and they served food, and it was an elderly couple, and we were sitting there talking. And you got people coming in that late, small town Nebraska. People are interested, especially when you're of a certain skin tone and in a certain part of the state. It's almost a rarity. And so we're having a great conversation and things like that. And something about that old man made me open up about my whole trip and what I'd been dealing with, what I'd been going through. And so I was low on money. I had to eat, and whatever was left after I paid for my food, I was going to put in the tank so I could get as close as I could. And not only did that couple not charge me for the food, but they filled my tank up. It was like so many little things happened on that trip. And I wish I could remember their names too. It was so many years ago. So many issues, so many things that have happened in my life, so many great things, so many sad things. Um, I can only remember the kindness that they showed. It was, I didn't ask anybody for anything, and people were just so kind. So that's why I always say you got to believe the best in people. Um, and if you're a good person, people see that. And some of that makes me, when I think about these things, especially talking about them, a lot of this I haven't spoken about in years. And so many, like when I think about this type of stuff, I go, there was always God looking out, even when I didn't want to believe it. The universe. I can't to this day explain why so many things like that happened on that trip. Um, that trip, in and of itself, deserves a book. Anyhow, so make a beeline straight for Omaha, down I 80. It's dark, it's desolate. There are stretches of Nebraska that go on for hours where you don't see towns, you don't see lights. The only light is the light that comes from your headlights on your car for miles and miles. and the terrain is just so flat, you know. And I remember just thinking and thinking, and next thing I know, I'm rolling in Omaha, and it's probably midnight, and I stop and call my grandma from a payphone and let her know I'm there, and she says, "Yeah, come on over. I'm up." So I go in, I talk to her for a while, and my dad ain't far away, and we've already gotten to all of that. I've covered a lot about my dad in the first two episodes, and so our relationship is very, very rocky. I mean, as a matter of fact, he can't stand me, and so she calls him to tell him I'm there, and in her mind, it's more, hey, Charlie's back in town. Charlie was my nickname growing up. My dad and a girlfriend of his said I looked like Charlie Tuna from the Starkist commercials. So that nickname kind of stuck. So, and I guess he says, let me talk to him on the phone. And so I get the phone, and I can't even repeat the first few things out of his mouth. Let's just say, same old, same old. So I hung up the phone. And it was the first time I ever just blatantly hung up the phone and didn't want to hear it. And so I know that at that point, he's probably on his way down to come confront me. So, my grandmother, she knows that too. And so we talk for a little bit more. She goes into her bedroom. She comes out with money and says, I love you, and I'm sorry that he's been this way to you. And told her I appreciated it. Wasn't her fault. And I decided that I didn't want to take her money as much as I needed it. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you can decipher that part for yourself as to why I did that, but I just know that's what I did. Needless to say, I continued on my journey, and I made it back to Des Moines. I made amends as best as I could with the people that I needed to make amends with, and I honestly don't think any of us ever recovered from that. I did discover how much I did not want to be like my father. I was forced to discover that as bad as I thought that I had it, it could have been a lot worse. I learned that I was better than the circumstances that I had came from. I learned that there's a lot going on more than what I've got going on. Like whatever I think I got going on, there's always something greater. I learned that there's good everywhere if we just opened our eyes. Um, Not judging a book by its cover. Nothing is what it seems. There's so many things I could go on and on. But that was a life defining trip. And everyone has those moments in life, those canon events that I always talk about, where you go through something, and depending on which way you move, your life can take a major shift, like a choose your own adventure novel. So yeah, that was something that needed to happen. Now, if you were to just hear that story, or if someone just talks to somebody and you don't know the full depth of where all that come from, it sounds like a completely stupid idea. And so many times I struggled with thinking that about the whole trip. It was just a stupid idea. What was I thinking? I mean, I started going stir crazy on that trip in so many situations, especially being by myself. Um, I don't know. I just know I got tired of being bullied, and I got tired of feeling like I couldn't accomplish anything on my own, and I got tired of the same old, and I got tired of wondering if I was going to be good at this or good at that, if I was going to be a good dad, if I was going to be a good husband, if I was going to be better than what I had came from. Sorry, my dogs get distracted. I just I got tired of worrying about everybody else and needed to think about me. And even though that needed to happen, I still felt selfish. You know, it's like a chicken or the egg thing. There's times where you have to focus on you, and then when you do that, you're neglecting something else. Like there's always a trade-off. Um, but needless to say, um, I decided it would be better for me and for my child to to be in my daughter's life. Um, I had this mindset of, if I can do right by my child as much as possible, then I've already defeated the generational demons that befell my family, you know, or at least in my situation. But yeah, that trip was eye opening. So, with that being said, I'm going to conclude this series. Um, Thank you if you've taken the time to view this or listen to it. A lot more to come. Not maybe about this particular series. This one's another chapter that's closed. But we're gonna have some more conversations, and so I am really looking forward to this. Like I said, I don't have many views. I don't have many subscribers. I don't really care about that. This is very therapeutic and cathartic for me. So if you discover it, I hope you enjoy. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this episode and wish you all the best. And God bless. Peace.